Good morning. Welcome to this online worship service, a time set aside each week to consider what really matters in our lives and in the world. Our mission here at Sunnyhill is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is Kelly Anderson, and I serve as a worship associate for this congregation. Today's service features a sermon by Reverend McKinley, minister of the UU Church of the Restoration in Philadelphia. This is the first of several services this summer featuring sermons by UU ministers from around the country. If you are a newcomer or visitor to our congregation, please visit our website, sunnyhill.org, and click on the button that says New to Sunnyhill. We would love to let you know how you can connect with the congregation, even during this time when our building is closed. Today, as we listen to our opening music, we encourage everyone who is watching or listening, not just newcomers, but everyone, to let us know you're here by saying good morning or hello in the comment thread on Facebook or YouTube. We'd love to hear from all of you and have a chance to say good morning to everyone who is with us today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for saying hello.
Hello, I'm here today with Richard Freeman, who is president of PEN, and Sunnyhill's own Pat Murray, who's one of our leaders of our social justice team here at Sunnyhill. Richard Freeman only recently became PEN after having been president some years ago. He is pastor of a Baptist congregation out in Braddock and serves as the head of the chaplaincy program at Children's Hospital here in Pittsburgh. He's also a longtime 30-year resident of Mount Lebanon. And I want to thank you, Richard, for being with us today. And is there anything else by way of introduction that you'd like people to know about you?
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Pat. I won't politicize too much, but most of you heard the last name Freeman in the last election. That was my youngest son. who was on the school board, running for school board. So if you voted for him, I say amen. If you didn't, I said, what was wrong?
Well, I will tell you that that I saw his name on a lot of yard signs in Mount Lebanon, and I will admit that one of them was in our own front yard. So we are happy for the way things turned out. And I'll turn things over to you, Pat, if you have questions or comments to make.
Yes, Richard, I just thought it would be helpful for people to know during this pandemic, where we've all been so confined, what is it that PIN has accomplished? What have we been focused on? And where are we headed? So it's kind of a little look past and current and future.
Let me start the future, Pat, because I can handle that better. In the spirit of transparency, I was president of PIN for 5 years and took about a 4.5-year hiatus and did some of this self-discovery. And in that self-discovery, I believe in my language, God orchestrated my steps that PIN asked me to come back and be considered as the president. And it was a very fortuitous moment for me. So being able to speak for them right now, I do have some ability to talk there, but let me talk more seriously about where we're going. In my first iteration as president, Pat, we did a whole lot of work surrounding a whole lot of issues where we supported a whole lot of other people's agenda. It was very fruitful for us. We were the largest organization in the Gamaliel network. Our budget was huge compared to other affiliates within the network. We were the darling of the network. But in truth, and from my perspective, our identity was not as formulated as I would want it to be. At that time, I thought we were great and we were shining. As I stepped away for 4 years, I have learned we have to be better focused, and that's where we're heading. We're in the work right now of focusing ourselves, doing the work of discernment, finding out where are we willing to put our energies going forward. Right now, we're doing a considered effort in that area. Now, as we move towards that determinant, we are doing some work around returning citizens, meaning formerly incarcerated people and their rights in our culture. I use the language, Pat and Jim, we have a constitutional prohibition against double jeopardy, but we don't have one against perpetual jeopardy. And people who are incarcerated are in perpetual jeopardy. They are denied jobs, they are denied housing, they are denied education, and in some respects, even those, there are consequences that are passed on to their children. For example, if someone was incarcerated for a drug crime, if they're applying for financial aid, their children are applying for financial aid for the federal government, they're automatically denied financial aid. Not because the kid has done anything, but because their parents have done something. Something's wrong with that. So we've got to do some work. And that's one of the areas that we are spending a considerable amount of time, even now, discerning how can we help our fellow citizens who have already paid their dues to society, so we say, to reintegrate into our culture. The other area we're doing some work on is around voter rights and voter access. It's huge for us. Most of us are aware, subsequent to the 2020 election, over 40 states are passing some of the most draconian, oppressive voter restrictions that we've ever seen. I'm a product of the South, and I grew up in the tail end of the Jim Crow era. We are seeing laws that were more repressive and regressive than Jim Crow laws, and yet I don't see the level of activism necessary to retard those kinds of laws. That's another area that I think we here in Pennsylvania need to be vigilant, because in truth, it can happen here in PA. And we've got to keep our eyes open. We've got to keep our ears to the ground. We got to keep our legislators on point to make doggone sure that no one's vote is denied. And those are two of the major areas that we're working on. Historically, over the last few years, those are some of the areas Penn has already done some work on. But I'd be a little disingenuous to try to speak very cogently on it because I wasn't there.
Yeah. That makes sense, Richard. Thanks so much. And thanks for talking about those two particular areas. I know both of those areas are things that our congregation has an interest in and some passion about. So I guess a couple of things I just want to make sure we get into this conversation is, one, I know that there's going to be a Penn banquet, which will be held online this year. And then also, I'd like to talk a little bit about specifically how our congregation might be more involved with Penn. But let's talk about the banquet. When is that going to be held, and how do we find out more information about it?
Oh, the banquet's coming up. You're pressing me on dates. Pat,
do you know?
Pat,
I'm going to look. I think it's August 29th. But
August 29th. It is being done virtually again this year.
Right.
And we're sending out save the dates in the next week. The intent is to highlight the work that we're doing around returning citizens. Most of the conversation will be led by former incarcerated people and the people within Penn who are doing that work. We are looking at the possibility of having a named person, but that may not happen. And we believe we can make this process work very well, even if that person isn't available to us. We believe that the work is more germane when it's local. And so Sunnyhill can get involved very well in supporting it. It's a fundraiser for us, and it brings in about half of our budget. And we look to do things like our tickets. We're not selling tickets this year because it's virtual, but we do a virtual auction. We do many things to support the work of Penn. We encourage people to become sustaining donors to our organization by observing what we do. And if you're impressed by what we do, we ask that you support it. And so I encourage Sunnyhill, encourage all your congregants and your friends and everybody you know, let them know that we're working hard to try to make a difference in our culture. Everybody that we're going to be talking about in our banquet is representative of humanity. And everybody needs to be supported because they are fellow human beings. We may not agree with the reason why they were incarcerated. We may not agree with where they are in their lives, but they deserve the same integrity that every person deserves. And that's where our bank will be highlighting that. And we encourage people to come on, join in. In fact, you don't even have to come out of your house. Just click a button, join online with us, and be a strong advocate for the work that we're doing.
That's great.
I just want to mention that we will be putting that save the date notice in our electronic newsletter called The Beat, Richard, in the next couple of weeks. So people will be seeing that. We'll hopefully be looking for it.
All right. So, Richard, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us today. Pat or Richard, do you have any closing words or thoughts that you want to get in before we finish?
I just wanted to mention that I want to expand the number of people in our congregation who are involved with PIN. I hopefully looking forward to having social justice be more of a circle than a pyramid. And I'd like to have people fit in where their interests lie and as their schedules allow. And there's lots of places where people can help out. So please feel free to contact me with any interest you have, because I think we can accommodate you, and it'll be good for all of us.
Great.
I think there's one thing I would say, and I find it for me, one of my growing edges over the last 4 years is we have to liberate ourselves from the notion that isms will ever be eradicated. Mm-hmm. We have, it's an issue of human hearts. And unfortunately, legislation won't change human hearts. Mm-hmm. But we have the authority and the wherewithal to change the consequences and respond to the consequences. So we get out there, if laws are passed against transgendered youth, we get out there and we fight against it. Will that change the hearts of people? Not really. But I be doggone if we're going to let those laws stand. So we get out there and fight. If we have repressive voting rights, we get out there and fight against them. Because isms are going to be there until, frankly, hell freezes over. But we got the authority and the joy of fighting for justice. So join us in the work day by day, and we'll make it a better day for the next person.
Thank you again so much, Richard. I really appreciate your stepping up and into this position with PIN again, and I appreciate your passion and commitment. So thanks so much for that and for being with us today.
Thank you for allowing me to chat with you and your congregation.
All right.
Bye.
Our opening words were written by Maureen Killoran. Welcome, you who come in need of healing. You who are confused or who have been betrayed. Welcome with your problems and your pain. Welcome to your joys and your wonderings. Welcome your need to hope, your longing for assurance. Instead of answers, here may you find safety for your questions. Instead of promises, may you find community for your struggles, people with hands and hearts to join you in engaging the challenges and changes of our day.
Please join us in saying the words for lighting our chalice. In these hard times, let us look first to the response of love. In the midst of challenge, may our chalice flame bear witness to the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. In the midst of uncertainty, may our chalice be a beacon of encouragement that our values may guide our choices. Look first to the response of love.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
Babies aren't born believing in anything. They aren't born Buddhists or Baptists or believers of any sort. But soon after we arrive in the world, we start to gather ideas. We pick up beliefs and ideas about people and animals and families. We gather thoughts about stars and comets and how it all got started. We determine our beliefs about good and bad, right and wrong, what's healthy and unhealthy, and what's important to us in our lives. All of these beliefs, from which we get from our parents and friends, from TV, and our Sunnyhill RE classes, go into our belief bag. Now, most religions define themselves by what they believe or what goes inside the bag. Christians, for instance, believe in salvation through Jesus. Muslims believe that there is no God but Allah in his prophet Muhammad. Buddhists believe that the Four Noble Truths will release us from the suffering of this world. But Unitarian Universalists don't have just one set of beliefs. What makes us different is the way that we Unitarian Universalists carry our beliefs, because there are different ways of holding your belief bag. For example, some people hold their bag like this. They clutch it close and make sure that the top is tightly sealed. They don't want their beliefs exposed to any new ideas that could threaten what's inside the bag. Their world is all wrapped up in a nice, tidy package. On the other hand, some people are just the opposite. They don't pay much attention to what goes inside their bag. One idea is as good as another. And if other folks believe it, or they read it on Facebook, or heard it on talk radio, must be true. And then there are people who carry their bag like this, like a club, and they use it to hit other people. What's inside their bag may sound very nice and sweet. For instance, I believe in peace and kindness and the golden rule, but then they use their bag like a weapon. You don't believe in peace? Why? You nasty person. Shame on you. But none of this is the Unitarian Universalist way. Instead, we carry our bags like this. We carry them with the top open so that new ideas and experiences can get inside. And old beliefs could just be tossed aside if we need to. We carry our bags in front of us so that we can see and examine exactly what goes in, to make sure it makes sense and fits with the other things we know. And also so that we can share our thoughts with others. Above all, we never use our beliefs to beat up or bully other people. That's what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. The next time somebody asks you, what do people in your church believe? You can tell them. For Unitarian Universalists, it's less important what you believe than how you hold your beliefs. It's how you acquire them, how you share them, and above all, what you do with them that counts.
Carl. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us that we are here to be lifted in love. Look at the birds, they tell us we're here to be lifted in love. To listen to love as a flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the sky, it tells us we are here to be lifted in love. Look at the birds, they tell us we're here to be lifted in love. To listen to love as a flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love.
Because today's service was pre-recorded well ahead of time, Joys and Sorrows for this week will not be read at this time, but will be shared via email with all Sunnyhill members and friends. Check your inboxes for any joys and sorrows that have been submitted since last week. Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. We come to this hour filled with sorrows, filled with joys, filled with hopes, with anxieties, with fears, with dreams. We come to this hour afraid for the future of our planet, afraid for the future of our children, the future of our country, uncertain about what might happen next. We come to this hour with a deep longing, a longing for wisdom, for understanding, for community that helps and heals, that sings in our hearts a song that lingers, that gives us something to hold on to what is real and true. Let us linger for a moment of silence as we hold together all those feelings, all those fears, all those longings in the warmth and love of this gathered community. May we sing together a new hymn of goodness and mercy, that our souls might find something like peace, might find meaning and purpose, that we might find a way of living for each other that brings love and justice into our hearts, into our families, into our communities, and into our world. May it be so. Amen.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
In our tradition, we often start with a bell ringing, as you may have done here, or the lighting of a chalice or a candle. So if you didn't do that earlier, I invite you to grab a candle now and light one with me as I read some of these words that will help frame our homily this morning. We light a candle in our tradition of Unitarian Universalism to symbolize that even when we are apart, when we partake in a ritual together, we are together. One of our religious strands of Christianity speaks that whenever two or three are gathered together, there the Spirit is also. Even if we are only connected through Zoom screens and fiber optic cables and the wonderful magic of Wi-Fi, we are still together, friends. I take a lot of heart in that these days. So I want to share with you this reading about what it is to be in today's America. A reading called The Womb of Stars from Joy Atkinson. She writes, "The womb of stars embraces us. Remnants of their fiery furnaces pulse through our veins. We are of the stars, the dust of explosions cast across space. We are of the earth. We breathe and live in the breath of ancient plants and beasts. Their cells nourish the soil. We build our communities on their harvest of gifts. Our fingers trace the curves carved in clay and stone by forebears unknown to us. We are a part of the great circle of humanity gathered around the fire, the hearth, the altar. We gather anew this day to celebrate our common heritage. May we recall in gratitude all that has given us birth." Would you take a breath with me? This is a story about birth. My homily today speaks to the feelings that I have been experiencing, that my congregation at Restoration in Philadelphia has been experiencing, that many of us, especially white folks, have been experiencing, feelings born out of the pandemic and of the uprisings for racial justice over the past 18 months. These are feelings that my Black and brown siblings have been experiencing the past 4 years in heightened awareness, and indeed, for our whole lives. I feel like we in America, for the past 18 months, for the past 4 years, some of us for our whole lives, have been in the midst of a great discomfort. For those folks who look like me, it has always been a time and place of comfort to be and live here in America. And the past 5 years or so have turned that on its head for many of us who are well-meaning white folks. It is a time of discomfort now for many of us. And this story starts where we're born. There's a theory in the adult model of education that I have learned. It says that as you grow from an adult to an adult from youth, you learn your ways of being in the world. You learn your culture, your ways of socializing with other humans, that you learn how to be from your family of origin, from the culture in which you grew up, the time and place and context of your birth. That's how you learn how to be in the world. But at some point, when you leave that family of origin, or when you leave your world, that original cultural bubble of your youth. And for me, if you can't tell by my accent, I'm from West Texas. And when I left the bubble of West Texas, I was confronted with a new world that my upbringing, my family of origin, and my white, Eurocentric, heteronormative, nominally Christian culture did not prepare me for. I experienced what we call in this adult model of education a disorienting dilemma. A disorienting dilemma. That's where all the tips and the tricks and the trades, all the techniques that your culture taught you growing up, all the stuff that was taught of how to be in the world, all of a sudden they don't work for you anymore. All of a sudden they don't make sense in this new reality with which you are faced. For white folks like me, when we look at the America that we thought we knew, President Obama's America, and find out that it's not as great as we were taught by that family of origin or by that original culture, we experience a disorienting dilemma. When we look at the America that we thought we knew, our Black and brown siblings, our queer and disabled siblings, all the siblings who have been marginalized by my culture in this country. For y'all, this is the America you've always known. For you, there is no disorienting dilemma. So it might be that you were watching the folks who look like me have the dilemma, and you've been trying to reorient us, doing that emotional labor and having a hard time believing that white folks don't know or can't know the best way to do things. To experience that kind of message can be disorienting, because that's the message that you've been hearing and taught through all the channels of white supremacy culture, and how all of that filters into our brains and affects all of us regardless of our skin color. I think many folks in UU congregations know this feeling of disorientation, because as people who come from different religious backgrounds, to be in one body, to worship in one service, we oftentimes experience these dilemmas too. We have to learn how to make sense of a new reality that mashes spiritual traditions, beliefs about God, various brands of liberal politics, let's be honest, y'all, and a robust distrust of religious authority. My prayer for today is for strength and courage for those of us who are feeling disoriented, that we might dive a little further into that disorientation with courage and vulnerability. Yes, dive further in, friends, because when you are confronted with a disorienting dilemma, I have been taught and I have experienced and come through, there are two options for how you can respond. One, you can keep leaning on your old patterns, your old tips and techniques, tools of the trade for how to get by and how to be, even though they no longer serve you. Keep repeating the same patterns that do not work, and friends, you will get stuck. You will be in conflict for the rest of your days and be constantly disoriented. Or you can work to identify those tools and tips and techniques of how you grew up, of what you were taught, analyze why you were taught, what you were taught, why you grew up the way you did. If you can analyze and identify where you got these and how they had served you up until this point of disorientation, then you can start to dismantle them. Take the problematic ones, the ones that aren't working anymore, the ones that otherize people, the ones that disassociate you from the marginalized parts of your community. You can toss those aside and start learning new ways of being, birth new ways of being into existence. It's what we learn how to do in UU spaces especially, but as human beings. Many folks who come to our congregations have to learn to do this. It's what folks who move from a homogeneous situation to a heterogeneous situation, especially a multiracial situation, especially here in America, especially in 2021. It's what we have to learn to do. Friends, we have to find new ways of being in this new understanding of the world. It's our call to liberation. In my own personal faith tradition of Christianity, we talk about the people being gathered together as one body. We call it the body of Christ. And if there are ways that we have to learn to be in this new body that takes into account all the various levels of power and imbalance and inequity, to learn to be together in a new body, we experience this disorienting dilemma in this heterogeneous situation. But with that disorientation and the discomfort and the tension, especially for folks who look like me, white people in America, with that tension and discomfort and disorientation comes the opportunity and the invitation. Friends, the only way out is to dive further in, to go through the disorientation. Because from the tension, from the disruption, from the feelings of unease, from the cramping and the contractions, as any mother will tell you, comes the new body being birthed, where the new life and the new ways of being are waiting to emerge. Friends, that is the interdependent web of all existence in action. The liberation is born when we go through the discomfort, not away from it. Saying that we should not talk about those things, that it makes me too uncomfortable, it's not my fault. This is the invitation. The only way out is through, my friends. So I hope you will join me in a moment of prayer or reflection as we think of these new ways to be, and as we face with courage our disorienting dilemma on how to make America great together. Would you be with me in a spirit of prayer? Holy Spirit, who goes by many names and by none, who speaks through acts of love and justice, who works creatively within our hands, within the movements of the planets, within the stirrings of the earth and the moral arc of the universe that bends towards justice. May we be a part of that bending. May we be on the path that leads towards a beloved community, towards a multiracial, heterogeneous community where there is no disorienting dilemma. There is only an orientation towards love, towards peace, towards grace. May we be filled with strength and courage to dive deeper into the tension, to not shy away from hard conversations, especially the hard conversations that happen inside of our own heads. May we be filled with resolve to do the hard work, to understand what is happening to our siblings of color, our siblings who have been marginalized by who they are or what their body looks like. May we find peace to give to ourselves when we feel guilt. Because feeling guilt is natural, y'all, but it is not productive and it is not food for transformation. May the peace and forgiveness that we give to ourselves be transformed into responsibility and action. Responsibility to understand the world for how it is for those who do not look or pray like us. Responsibility to teach those who need a little help to learn about privilege and fragility. Responsibility to always act with the greatest love as our best guiding principle. May we learn new ways of being part of this great body, and may our discomfort breed new kinds of life out of the tension and discomfort. Amen. Friends, I invite you to put your hands on your heart as we end with this meditation. Feel the heartbeat of your own body. You who are created in the image of God, meaning the divine spark resides within you. The indwelling and incarnation of holiness within you. As your heart beats, what is it calling out to you? How is it speaking to you? What is it asking you to learn? I invite you to move your hands to your stomach. See if you can feel your heartbeat even there. As your body is connected by the blood that courses through your veins, reminding you that you are connected and we are connected within our own body, the body of the UUA, the body of our congregations, the body of humanity, gathered around the fire, the hearth, the altar. We are connected not just by the internet, but we are connected to one another, to the indwelling of spirit within one another. And that we are connected to all the bodies, all the plants and animals, connected to the stars in the sky, the water in the seas. All of life is connected. I want you to move your hands to your temples, to feel your heartbeat in your mind and in your head. You who are endowed with intelligence and wit and humor and sarcasm and love, the ability to solve problems, the ability to choose new ways of being. May we be reminded to use our powers for community, for justice, and above all for love. I invite you to put your hands back on your heart. Feel your rhythm, the divine within you, the divine within me. May we honor the call of that divine. Seek liberation. Work for justice and peace. And abide in that great love. May it be so. Amen.
Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on when sorrow heals my soul and burdens make me strong. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on.
If you'd like to make a gift via our online giving system, you can do so in one of two ways. You can go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says Online Giving, and then follow the instructions. Once you get to the drop-down menu, just choose either 2021 pledge collections for payments toward your pledge, or non-pledge collections for other donations. You can give by text at 412-324-3130. Just dial that number using your smartphone and follow the instructions. You can also mail a check if you prefer, and you can find our mailing address on our website, sunnyhill.org. Thank you for your generosity.
Please join us in saying the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words were written by Martha Kirby Capo. Our time together is finished, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved. As we meet the challenges of the week to come, the chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion. Go in